Welcome to the Happy Mindset. Today's episode is episode number 71, and today's episode title is called Follow Your Intuition. So today I'm joined by Rich Oceguera. Rich is a transformational catalyst, a talk show host, and a comedian. On today's episode, Rich talks about the journey he's gone on so far to follow his intuition, the many moments he's felt like his intuition was a bit off and he didn't want to follow it, and did it in spite of those fears and reservations. So I learned a lot from Rich. I learned how simple it is to follow your intuition, how much of it is just about paying attention in your moment-to-moment life, and how curiosity can help you as well to get in touch with your intuition. So I enjoyed talking to Rich, and I hope you can get some valuable insights from today's episode. Another thing I want to mention is that just recently I've set up a Patreon page for the Happy Mindset podcast. Basically, it's a way for you to support the podcast if you've enjoyed listening to the 70 or so episodes so far. If you head on over to Patreon, look for the Happy Mindset podcast, you'll find it there. There's a few different tiers and there's a few different goodies you can avail of, including a t-shirt with an illustration from the book and a signed copy of the book as well, Taking My Life Back. So another thing that I'm doing right now that I'm exploring is helping other people to become authors. I spent the last year writing my first book and getting it out on Amazon. And I'm looking to help people who have a story that they want to share or a story they want to own, or just they want to go about writing a book and becoming an author. I'm looking to help those people who feel a bit overwhelmed. They don't know where to start, so they just never do anything on it. So if you're interested in getting help from me when it comes to writing a book and getting your story out there, then you can connect with me on Facebook. You'll find me in the Happy Mindset group. Reach out to me there and we can take it from there, see if it's a good fit and whether I can help you and whether you want to commit to becoming an author. So thanks again for listening, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Okay, so thanks for joining us today, Rich.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me.
So my first question is, who are you and what are you doing in the world today?
Who am I? $1 million question. So in terms of who I am in the world, as you know, my name is Rich Oceguera, and I am a transformation catalyst. That is the label I give myself to attempt to describe my purpose, what I'm here to do in the world. And my purpose is to help people who are open to being their biggest self, helping people to understand the power that they have to not only change their lives first and foremost, but to take that and to do something with that in the world that makes a difference. You know, if it's in their family, in their local community, or even at a greater level, beyond their local environment. So I work with people who know that potential is inside of them and need some support, tools, and especially mindset, mindfulness, and heartfulness tools to help them take their purpose, their mission, their vision, and put that out to make a big difference in the world. So that's what I do.
Good stuff. What led you to becoming a transformational catalyst?
It came from my own, I guess I'll use the word selfish, from just my own personal journey. And at some point, as you know, when you go through the process of studying and practicing transformation tools, at some point, you know that you just can't keep it to yourself anymore. And that it's really for us to be giving and to be of service to other people. And so over time, that's what happened. You know, I started doing transformation and mindset type training in my 20s, and thought it was just for me to become a better salesperson. That was why I took my very first transformation program. Had nothing to do with anyone else. It was just about, like, how can I be better at sales and make more money? And at that workshop, probably within the first 30 minutes, it became really apparent that I actually wasn't there to learn how to make more money. I was there to deal with all of the limiting beliefs and broken parts that I didn't even realize I had, and that's what sparked the whole thing. So it's been going on for quite a while, and at some point, a coach told me that it was really doing a disservice to the world if I didn't share all this training and all this practice and expertise that I had gathered just for me. If I didn't put that out into the world, I was kind of robbing other people from the potential that they have as well.
So what drew you to like the mindset work in your early 20s? Was it like your work gave you to do that, or was it something you were drawn to yourself? Like, looking back, how were you drawn to that?
Well, like I was just saying, back then I was working in sales. I'm 50 years old now, so we're talking almost 25 years ago. I was in sales. I was a sales manager and had started working with coaches and also a neuro-linguistic kind of / hypnosis coach. And I started getting exposed to some of these tools, and I really just thought I want to go take this class, this training that someone told me about, to become a better salesperson, to become a better manager, and that is really what opened the door to what's happened since then. But even before that, from a spiritual perspective, in my earlier 20s, I got introduced to a book called A Course in Miracles, and to Marianne Williamson, who is a teacher of the Course in Miracles, and also people like Louise Hay and Carolyn Miss. These are very prominent spiritual leaders, and they all kind of came across my path around the same time in my life. And at the end of the day, that's also all about mindset and mindfulness, and learning how to be responsible for our lives, and being responsible for what happens in our lives then gives us power to do something about it, especially if it's something that we don't like, right? So that kind of laid the foundation, and then I got to this more ontological type of mindset training, and then it just kind of exploded from there.
So what sort of shifts did you see in yourself, like when you started doing some mindset work and you became more mindful of what was going on in your life?
Well, I mean, at the time I was in a relationship, a long-term relationship, and I think that the immediate impact was in that relationship, and our ability to communicate in a new way really shifted how we operated with each other, how we were able to be in relationship with each other. I also noticed, of course, on the professional side, the people that I worked with, my employees that I trained, my bosses, anyone that I was coming in contact with, I was able to hear them differently. I don't know how to explain this. I'm sure you'll understand what I'm saying, but one of the very valuable tools I have learned through mindset training, which is of course distinct from mindfulness, is the ability to listen to what's not being said. So those spaces in between the words, right? Which is also communication. That was something that I became able to really be with the person, hearing them, witnessing them, what they were saying and also what they weren't saying, all at the same time. And it just increased my ability to be an excellent listener, and then be able to be with a person in a way that makes them feel validated and empowered. And that's it didn't come from just one particular tool or workshop. It's kind of a culmination over time, but that's a skill that I don't know that people can develop unless they put themselves through these kinds of experiences.
Yeah, like that was going to be my question. Is like, do you know how you became aware of it? Like what you're saying there was an accumulation of a lot of different things, a lot of different experiences and stuff.
Yeah. I think it's as I have become more aware of my own thoughts and my own patterns, and learning learning tools around the use of language, whether it's verbal language, body language, and then, like I was talking about, silence, the space between the words, right, is also a language. And just becoming aware of that there are many ways that we communicate. There's many ways that we receive information, that we give information. That knowing, or that understanding, I think all of that has just kind of come together to allow me to become much more perceptive. I guess that's a word I didn't use yet, but the level of perception that I can have with people. I'm not saying it happens all the time in every conversation, but especially in my coaching work with my clients, or if I'm teaching a workshop or a class or whatever the case may be, this is where I really notice that particular skill has come into play. And I think it also has to do with intuition, which is a whole other category. And it's something that I teach now, is how can you develop your awareness, your perception, your perceptive skills, because we all have them. And you may have particular ways of perceiving information that are different than mine, but we all have them. And when we believe that, number one, and then start to explore, how do I receive information? What are the ways that my divine guidance system speaks to me? And then trusting that information. Like, I think all of these things kind of intersect, and this gives us the ability to be much more perceptive, much more empathetic and aware. And then that allows us to be better communicators, better leaders, and hopefully make better decisions in how we go about our day-to-day lives or our business.
So are there general ways that people receive information?
Are you talking about intuitively?
Yeah. So somebody listening in, they might have, like, because we've only experienced one way of receiving information, we're not going to be aware of it sometimes. Are there different ways that people receive information intuitively?
Sure. So just to give you one example, I went on a walk this morning, and had a whole plan. I already had predetermined which way I was going to walk through the neighborhood, and that I was going to use my SoundCloud app to listen to a specific set of music that I have. Like, I had it all planned out. And as I started the walk, I was kind of getting into the groove or getting into a flow. I went to turn on the SoundCloud app, and it started to like reset. So I couldn't use it because I wasn't on Wi-Fi anymore. I was outside, right? So this app stopped working, basically, right? It wasn't going to work. So that kind of made me mad. It's because my plan got broken. So then I said, all right, I'll listen to iTunes, which I didn't really want to, because I don't have stuff there that I wanted to listen to today. But I went there, I found a mantra called the Mula mantra, a Sanskrit mantra. And I said, okay, I'll listen to that. It's been a while, that'll be good. So I start playing that, and then all of a sudden the iTunes also just stops. And I thought, wow, did my phone die? Did my phone, like, what's going on here? But my phone, rare moment, it was actually at 100% battery, and nothing I did would make the iTunes start again. Close the app, started the app, close, like nothing. So I'm now having to not have the music. So then I heard from my intuition, right, which is like a knowing. It's kind of a combination of almost a voice and then a sensation that I get. In my case, right on the right side of the back of my neck is where there's like a sensation. And I know that when I'm feeling almost like a pulsing there, that my intuition is trying to get my attention. That's one of the ways that I'll know that. And what I heard was, take a look around. And I thought, okay. So I just moved my head to the left. And right there, right next to my head, was this giant spider web. Huge, beautiful spider web. And right in the middle of the web was the spider. It literally was right next to me. And I thought, wow, like I totally would have missed that, being able to take in the beauty of what that spider had created. I totally would have missed the message that maybe that spider or what it represents has for me. And so, I kind of took in the beauty of the spider and the spider web. I took some pictures of it, of course, got to do the social media. And and then I went on my walk, and then lo and behold, the iTunes starts working again. So from that, knowing what I know and my beliefs, I know that animals, or insects in this case, spiritually all contain a message. They all have a certain set of attributes or information that's associated with them coming. This is based on indigenous belief systems and shamanic belief systems, other spiritual systems as well. So I know that this is the stuff that I study and that I like to learn about. So while I was on the walk, I Googled, spider medicine, or spider spirit animal, and of course got all kinds of articles about the meaning of spider. And so I read those, and I read several of them, and then kind of took from that what that spider message might have for me. And in this case, the spider represents feminine energy. It represents creation. It also represents our shadow sides. There's a lot of different things that it could represent, but I was able to kind of put together some meaning behind my head being right next to this giant spider web, and took a message from that. And for me, and what I would teach, what I teach is that's one way that intuition or divine guidance is sending a message. So when you're working in the realm of intuition and learning to pay attention to your divine guidance system, or your internal GPS, messages can come in many ways. They may be external, like suddenly a spider web shows up next to you. You might see a repetition of numbers or letters or words, or you might suddenly have a thought of a particular person that you haven't thought about for a while, and that person may keep coming to mind. It might happen in your dreams. It might happen because you hear a conversation next to you from complete strangers, and some words of that pop over to you, and it triggers an understanding. So there's many different ways that information might be coming to us. Some people who you've heard the word clairvoyant, which is probably one of the most known forms of extrasensory perception that people have heard about, where a person has the ability to literally see images that might have to do with the present, the future, or the past. Other people, clairaudience, they have the ability to actually hear a message from their intuition or their source. Some people have it through a sense of touch. Some people get certain smells that are linked to information, and that particular smell or the thing that would produce the smell isn't actually anywhere near them at the time. So there are different ways that intuition can come to us, and what we get to do is figure out which of those ways, because there can be multiple ways, that intuition shows up for us, and then start to be aware and notice when it happens, pay attention, and then take action based on that.
Did it take you long to realize that the feeling was in your neck from intuition? And how did you realize it was coming from your neck?
I think it's just been a process of it happening enough over time. It probably was happening before I was ever even thinking about these things. And then on my spiritual path, I would say, more to do with my spiritual path than mindset training, is when I started to learn about these things. Like, what is intuition? What is clairvoyance? These were things I started to be introduced to over time, and then become interested in. And the more that I learned about it, the more I was able to start mapping it to myself and onto my body. And that's when I started to realize, oh, there's a sensation that happens here. Usually that's the primary place. And when that's happening, I should pay attention. What's happening around me? What was said? What did I feel? What did I just do? What was I thinking about? To see what the correlations might be. So it's just become a matter of becoming aware, which involves educating ourselves, and then paying attention and noticing the patterns, and then trusting it. And that's the part where most people stop, because we get a thought or we get a sensation. You hear all the time, I just knew in my gut, right? And our guts are also a center of information. I lost my train of thought, but the knowing, paying attention to where we have the sensations in our body and noticing that they happen repeatedly is how I started to understand where on my body certain feelings or sensations were tied to information that was coming to me that I should probably pay attention to.
Mm-hmm. You mentioned there about the trust part is where a lot of people get stuck. Did it take you long to start trusting yourself and your own intuition?
Yes. Thank you for that reminder. Yes, because my brain, my very logical brain that thinks it knows everything, would discount these other feelings or knowings or in my case too, that, like I said earlier, like I heard to take a look around when I was talking about the spider story, right? Like I could hear that voice in my head with that sensation. And in the past, I might have just said like, well, that's crazy. Like I just made that up. I might have just said, well, some part of my brain just made that up. That's not real. But I've learned the hard way by not paying attention, by discounting those promptings. I've learned that when I don't pay attention, when I don't believe that the information is accurate, that things can go wrong, or if I keep pushing it away, it's going to find new ways to come back to me until I finally pay attention. And that process has been a real learning over years, to not only be able to recognize the ways I receive intuitive information, but to just go ahead and just say, all right, I'm going to go with that, even though it sounds ridiculous. It doesn't make any sense. It's clearly not logical. And that wasn't my plan. So as I get older, and I advise anyone, the younger that you start to pay attention, the better. The more useful these tools can be for your life. But once I started to really just allow myself to know that was my divine guidance system, that it had my back, that it was happening for a reason, then I was able to start. That's how the trust happened. And allowing myself to go with that flow and seeing that things opened up that I could never have imagined were going to happen is what started to build my trust, so that I can't say that 100% of the time I immediately just say, okay, I'm going to go with that. But it's more and more and more often I do, because I know if I don't, that it's going to come back another way, and I should just go ahead and pay attention now.
Is there any situation that stands out in your mind where you ignored your intuition and in the end you had to learn the lessons anyway?
Yeah, well, I used to live in New York City. I lived there for 18 years before I came to San Diego. And at that point, I thought, that's a long time to be in one city, especially a place like New York. And I had a whole life there. I was established as a community leader. I had started my coaching business. It was where I lived. And, I travel a lot. So I just figured New York's home base, and I'll go do my thing around the world and always come back, home to New York City. And at around year 16, and following a divorce and a complete upheaval of my life, when I used to own a condo with my former partner, and we sold it as a part of the process of getting divorced. And we went on to get our own apartments after that. And when I went to sign the lease for my new apartment, I heard that voice. I had that knowing that said, only sign a 1-year lease, because I had the option of signing a 2-year lease, which would have locked in my rent and prevented the rent from going up in year 2, which was logical to me. That made sense because I live in New York. Why do I want to pay more than I need to? But I heard in my intuition to only sign 1 year. And I immediately said, and I'll just use the word God, and I call it all kinds of things. But I was like, what? Are you crazy? Why would I do that? I'm not going to move again after a year. This is a pain in the butt. But I kept getting that sensation, that knowing, nope, 1 year. So I said, fine, signed 1-year lease. The year blew by, and it's time now to either find a new apartment or renew my lease, of course, at the higher rent. And I'm in that same conversation again with only sign a year lease, and a bit more information came. It said, you're not going to be living here anymore in New York City. So don't sign more than 1-year lease because it's time for you to go. And that's when I just thought, God, what? This is ridiculous. This is where I live. Where am I going to go? I'm from LA. I lived in San Francisco. I lived in Chicago. Now New York City. Like, where else in the United States could I live that would be any better or have all the things that I'm used to now? I can't go backwards. But the voice was so clear. So I said, fine, I'll sign a year lease. And I guess this is where I get to move to Europe. I thought, there's other places I know I want to live in other parts of the world for some time in my life. So I thought, I'm going to go live, in London, or I'll go live in India for 6 months, or do those things. So my mind went into that, like, where in the world would I go? And within that exploration, I kept hearing San Diego. Now, San Diego is not a place that has ever been on a list that I should ever live. Not on my agenda, nowhere in my plans. I've never cared about San Diego. Just not, and even more so, it's in California. And when I left California, I said I would never move back to California. I'm done with that state. I'm moving on. So nothing about that made any sense. But yet San Diego kept coming to me, and it wouldn't go away. So to make a very long story short, as I was exploring where in the world I could live, I came across this woman at a spiritual bookshop who was doing some kind of tarot card reading. And I love tarot cards. I love those kinds of tools. I use them today. But when a person is in a bookshop doing readings, even though I love all those things, to me, it's quackery. It's fake. It can't be real. They're just trying to make a buck, And I'm Mr. Spiritual Teacher. I have a deck of cards. I used them before we did this conversation. But in this case, like, nope. But I was walking by that store, and my intuition, it said, go in and have a reading. And I said, are you crazy, God? You know I don't know. But I went in, and of course there was one opening at that precise moment for a reading. And the rest of the day was booked. So I said, okay. I paid the money. I had this reading. And the woman talked about, I asked questions about, am I going to move? And she was confirming, yes, you're definitely going to move. And then I said, well, where in the world am I going to go? And she offered to do a report for me that's called astral cartography. It's a form of astrology that can tell you where in the world you should live based on your own birth chart, like where your birth chart, where your planetary alignments match up to places in the world. And I thought, cool, this is going to prove I should stay in New York or I should live in Europe. But San Diego, no. So she does this report for me. And when the report comes back, all across the top, in the highest levels possible, literally the highest levels possible, in every category this report would cover, was San Diego, San Diego, San Diego, San Diego. It was irrefutable. And all the places that I thought I should live because I want to live were anywhere near the magnitude of alignment as San Diego was. So that's when I said, all right, God, I hate you. I don't know why you're sending me here. I don't know anyone there. It's not where I want to live. This is ridiculous. And fine, I will go. And then right after that happened, everything that I needed for me to make this transition from New York to San Diego, just like all the doors just opened. It all just fell into place. And it's because it was where I was supposed to come. And so this is an example of intuition. And that whole process got dragged out by 2 years because I kept saying, no, it doesn't make sense. No, I'm not leaving New York. No, I'm never going to live in San Diego. I will never move back to California. Like, no, 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 no. But the universe kept telling me in so many different ways, yes, you are leaving. Not only are you leaving, you're going to this place. And we don't care if you don't like that's where you're going, but that's where you're going to go. So the sooner you say yes, the faster we'll get that done for you. And that's how I ended up in San Diego.
I like that. I like that. Yeah, it's like all that happened there was like the process prolonged. It's like that was the path.
Yeah, and that's what I've learned about intuition, and it's what I teach my students is when we start to become aware of our intuition, and this is where that trust comes back in, and we start to trust that what's coming to us is for us, it's to support us, and it probably is going to lead us into a new dimension of our life that we could never, ever imagine with our logical brains, right? The sooner that we start to just say, okay, I'm gonna trust that. The more ease you'll have in your life, the faster you'll get to these next stages of your life. And the resistance that we put up, certainly that I have put up in my life, creates slowdown, it creates disconnection, it creates those getting out of alignment because we're going against the current.
Do you have any advice for somebody on how to trust when it's something that happens that doesn't seem like a good thing on the surface level? It could be something they need to grow through to get to the next level. How do they keep the faith and trust that this is the right path?
Yeah, I mean, I know that it's scary to when like the story I just told you about moving to San Diego. You know, I can't even emphasize enough that thought of moving to this city back to a state that I said I would never live in, like that just was so incredibly asinine to me that I couldn't even wrap my head around why that was the place, right? And when I said yes, and I said it in defiance for sure. I can like vividly see me like raising my fist to God, I hate you. Fine, I'll go. I mean, I was like a 3-year-old baby saying it, right? But it was saying it, even though it didn't make any sense, that shifted the whole situation. And this is just the thing. This is like when we come up to these opportunities, trusting that your higher source, and this implies that you do have a belief in some higher source or your higher self, whatever a person believes, right? That it really has your back, which is a huge lesson for us to all learn. That the faster that we can just surrender. And surrender is a strength. Surrendering is a strength. It's not a failure. It's a releasing. It's sort of like opening your arms and floating on the ocean, if you will. Like, I'm not going to drown. I'm going to be okay. That's something that I've had to learn. I am continuing to learn. And the only way that you learn it is by doing it and going through. Have you ever done a flotation tank? Have you ever been in one of those?
I've heard of them, right? It's something that I think would be quite cool or quite interesting to do. It's like all your senses are cut off, so you get, isn't that what it is?
Yeah, so you're in about 6 inches of water, and there's a tremendous amount of salt in the water, so your body floats. Even if you don't want it to, you will float in those 6 inches of water. And depending on the place that you do it, you'll probably be in a dark room with no light, and all of your senses get deprived, like you just said. And you're just in this space of floating in darkness, and it can sound terrifying, but it's also so liberating. Mm-hmm. And I'm mentioning that because that's the vision I'm having in my head right now, is this idea of trusting the universe, or trusting your intuition is kind of like that. It's where you literally just allow yourself to be supported. And I think that's the underlying thing is, if we're having an intuition, if we're receiving divine guidance, it isn't accidental, and it's for our benefit. And if we can allow ourselves to believe it, even for a second, and just to relinquish our control, knowing that we're fully supported in that surrendering, then things shift and they start to move in directions that you absolutely cannot imagine for yourself. And your life goes to a different level, and you get to learn a whole new set of lessons, and new people come into your life, new situations, and it's a beautiful thing. The opposite of that is stagnation. It's being right about what you think your life is supposed to be like. It's being defiant, and we stay stuck in a place because it's comfortable. And in that space of being comfortable, our comfort zone, if you will, there's no more room for growth. And because I know that you're a mindset guy, right? The magic happens in the uncomfort zone. Our expansion, our growth, our transformation happens when we cross our line, our limit of participation in life, or the walls of our comfort zone. When we get through them and to the other side, into the unknown, that's where all the magic is. That's where the newness is, and we get to expand our realm of comfort. And so many people aren't willing to do that because they're afraid. They don't want to be bothered. They don't trust that there is more to life, to their life. And that's why I love the work that I do. It's because I get to help people identify where they are within their little comfort zones, right? And then and then help them think about what it is that they want to do in the world and what they see for themselves. And oftentimes those things they see are on the other side of their walls. And in order to get over there and to do that thing or to be that person that they say they want to be, they're going to have to move through those comfort zones and into these new territories. And so that's the kind of work and support that I can offer people. And it's so exciting for me to be able to see someone take those risks and to trust themselves too. It's not just trusting, the universe. We're also trusting ourselves, and then seeing what happens because they did that, and who they are and who they become and the impact they can make. That's really exciting stuff.
What's the process like for somebody to identify their comfort zone? I think that's a key part to even begin, like to know that where your comfort zone is right now.
Well, I can give you, I'm trying to think of an example. Like for instance, I just recently, I'll give you a perfect example. It's actually the thing that led us to connect, right? Comedy, yeah. Right? I was sitting right here on this sofa that I'm on right now, one day feeling very sad, I'll use the word depressed. I don't mean it like clinical depression, but just feeling like really low feelings, and was lying here just feeling sorry for myself and blah, 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 and watching TV. And I found a documentary series that was about 6 stand-up comedians who were trying to get into this very prestigious comedy festival that takes place in Montreal once a year called Just for Laughs. And I love to watch stand-up comedy. It's, if it's not something comedic, then if I'm gonna watch something on TV or on video or whatever, Netflix, all the things. If it's not funny, then it's probably going to be something more, like nature or history or spiritual. Those are the categories of things I like to watch. But I never, ever thought more about comedy than like I like to watch people who make me laugh. So I'm watching this documentary, and as I start watching, it was in 6 episodes, and as each episode ended, I started to have a stronger and stronger intuition. Those feelings I talked about, right? That knowing in my neck, the voice was becoming present. And I just started saying, oh, what is happening? Oh no, oh no, no, no. And by the end of the series, it was crystal clear. I heard the voice, you are supposed to learn stand-up comedy. And that was as crazy and asinine as when I heard you are moving to San Diego. Probably even more crazy and confusing, because nowhere on my list of who I am or what I do or should do is stand-up comedian. It's not on my list. That's other people's jobs. But I knew it. I heard it. I felt it. I got it. And you were asking before about like learning how to trust, and I, at this point in my life, I just said, okay, there's the thing, there's the feeling, there's the knowing, and this is absolutely ridiculous, but okay, God, fine. I don't know what it means. I don't know how it's supposed to happen. This is ridiculous. You're going to figure this out. That's pretty much how I was. And then within a couple of days, I met a woman at a networking event who told the group that, oh, by the way, I'm having a workshop called Stand Up for Scaredy Cats. She's sitting right across from me, and I just could not, I was like, are you serious, God? So I took her workshop, and then she had a small program that she offered us to learn over like 7 weeks how to become a stand-up comedian. And I signed up for that too. And I was terrified, absolutely terrified, because I don't know if I'm funny. I didn't know people don't think of me as the guy like, hey, let's have Rich tell us a joke because he's hilarious. Like, I am not that guy. When I teach or speak to a group, absolutely, there will always be laughter, but it's not planned. It's not in my notes, but I know that I'm on the right path in the talk or the lesson or whatever, because people are laughing. And it's always been a natural, organic thing, not planned. There's no way I would ever like insert joke here. It's not how it worked. But stand up is a whole different thing. You know, where you create your jokes, you memorize your jokes, you bring life to the jokes, and you stand in front of a group of complete strangers and tell them your jokes, and either they like you or they hate you. And you're all alone there, and if it's not going well, what do? You know? So this has been the most terrifying thing I think I've ever done in my life so far, is going on this journey and then putting myself in these extremely uncomfortable situations on a stage at a comedy club or some brewery or a bar, like places I don't normally go to. And now I'm like in bars doing comedy. Like, what? This fear is huge, but yet I know that I'm not doing it because I think I should be funny. I'm doing it because this came as a divine inspiration, a divine intuition about what I'm supposed to be adding to how I present myself in the world. And, you know, I've becoming a spiritual teacher on top of the fact that I was a business coach, which was New York was business coach. I now know I was supposed to come to San Diego to also step into the realm of spiritual teacher, which was also never on my list of to-dos. Spirituality was for me, and it's my private thing. It wasn't what I should ever be talking about to other people. That was a whole other thing that I skipped over for you, but I had to step into, I'm also now a spiritual teacher who has an expertise in personal and business development, and I can work with business people to teach them how to bring all of those things together to be more powerful in life. And now comedy? Like, what? So these, this fear, I could have easily said, no, forget it. No. This is not, this is where I draw the line. But I've gotten to the place in my life where I know that I can't, because this prompting to do stand-up is not about my ego or that I think I'm a funny person or anything that might, be from a personal point of view. I know that some reason, and it's still unfolding, for some reason, the universe already knows that part of how I will get my message into the world, or how the message will come through me into the world, to be more specific, involves humor. And so I'm just going with it. And it's exhilarating and awful and terrifying and ridiculously fun all at the same time. And I'm literally, as we speak, practicing, trusting that the comedy has a role in my life that is so much bigger than me, and I will keep pursuing it until I know I'm not supposed to, like if and when that happens. So we do have to face our fears. We don't have to. We get to face our fears, and when we don't, so the comfort zone was your question. Like, it was not in my comfort zone to get up and do stand-up comedy. And then it became clear I'm supposed to, and that was a wall right there. I was like, nope, not happening. And then I said, okay, it's going to happen. And then I got to expand that wall. I got to push my level of comfort to a greater degree. And that's a work in progress. And now I'm doing improv as well. I just started an improv class to help me with my stand-up comedy. And that's a whole new, like, okay, this is very uncomfortable. I'm making a complete fool of myself in front of these complete strangers. And it's part of the process. So when you know that when you're invited to do something, or when you know that you're meant to do something, and that fear comes up that says, nope, that's not me. I'm not that person. I'm not like that. I could never do that. That's the wall. That's where you've reached your comfort zone, and then you get to have you have a choice. Do something about that, or stay comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's good. And when you stay comfortable too, though, you do get enough pain to drive you outside of that comfort again at some stage, I think. But
Yeah.
another question I had is that how has mindfulness and mindset work? How has that work helped you as a comedian get on stage and perform? Because I would imagine comedians, like, it's all about timing and it's about not being in your head and
Yeah.
having a rhythm.
Yeah, for sure. So all those tools absolutely come into play. So there's like a mindset process that I use, that where I'm actively choosing the state of being that I want to be in, even though I don't feel like it in this moment. But this is what I create my state of being to allow myself to do my best while I'm on that stage, because the fear and the nervousness, the anxiety, like all of that stuff is going to come up, and I can either be at the effect of it or use it to actually make what I'm doing even funnier. And so being aware of that, and then using some tools to create my state of being or my mindset in that moment, absolutely is part of what keeps me from passing out on that stage.
Mm-hmm.
Mindfulness, as you mentioned, being in the moment, being present, that can be very difficult to do when you're in a highly stressful situation. So that's absolutely the mindfulness piece comes in, with being with what's happening. And when you do stand-up comedy, you don't know what's going to happen in the room. You don't know what's going to come out of the audience. You don't know if they're going to think you're funny or not. And so that is, I think, where the mindfulness really comes in, is being able to riff off of or ignore, depending on what's happening, what's not in your script, so to speak, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so those tools are absolutely being used. Essential oils, which is another category of expertise that I have. I use grounding essential oils before I go on stage, to keep me focused. I have a group of friends that I've gone through this comedy journey with, and before we would go on stage, I invite them to do a quick guided visualization, and we use some essential oils for grounding. And I just have us all imagining, being connected to the earth and receiving information and receiving energy, through us, and that we're here to share laughter and to help people, even for a split second, to be happier in their bodies. So I do this little guided visualization. So I'm using all of these tools, behind the scenes, so that when I get on stage, I can be as out of my head and as present and flexible, literally, as possible, so that I don't get stuck. Or if I do get stuck, like I forget one of the jokes, which has happened for sure. Like, now what? Now what do I do? So there's just so many moving pieces. Yeah, improv, exactly. Yes, and
that's good. Yeah. So like that kind of routine you're doing in the background is like grounding yourself and then focusing on serving the audience rather than being in your head and thinking about yourself.
Yeah, to the best of my ability, and that's definitely a work in progress as well.
Yeah.
Every time I perform, it's a completely different thing. Even though the jokes may be the same, the audience is different, the room is different, everything's different. I'm different, so it's always a practice of bringing something newly to the space. And I think that's part of why I'm really loving it. It's exciting to be able to do that. It's highly creative, and that's a part of my life. Creativity has been pretty absent. I've been much more in this logical place in my life, and having this creative outlet that I didn't even know was missing from my life. And that goes back to the intuition. Like, the universe knew, like, this guy needs to laugh.
Mm-hmm.
and I never ever would have self-diagnosed with I need to laugh more. or I need to help other people laugh. Like I never would have had those thoughts at all, but my higher self knew, right? And so now I can see the brilliance behind them, and it's starting to make more and more sense.
Uh, yeah, it's like balancing yourself out. I think, like, from my experience, it's like I'm always out of balance somewhere. It's like bringing it back into more balance and stuff. And like you said there, it's more coming from a higher power more than if I had the thought that I need to do this in order to balance myself. I don't think it would actually work because it's just like some sort of thought that I'm latching to.
Yeah.
I feel, and
Yeah, and that's the beauty of intuition, is it knows things that we don't. It knows what we can't see, and that's the lesson I've been learning is that, like, it isn't it isn't you hear people say, like, oh, I just had a gut feeling about this, and so I took action, but that it was like it was like a special circumstance that they acted on that one gut feeling. It wasn't because it's a continual reaction or response. I guess what I'm trying to say is we're constantly have the ability to receive intuition around us constantly. It isn't every so often you get a gut feeling. We have the ability to constantly actually live in this place of receptivity. And the more that you practice honing your intuition, the more that you get to do that. But mostly we live in the opposite place, where when you do get a gut feeling, you're like, wow, that was interesting. Like, it was like a special occasion. But it actually, we're designed literally, physiologically, to be constantly in a state of receptivity to intuitive impulses. And the more that we practice, just like the more you work out at the gym, or the more you practice playing the piano, or whatever it is that we practice, the more we become receptive and able to act on those impulses. And then the more exciting life becomes, because you start doing things in your life that you never thought or knew that you could or would.
yeah, it keeps you on your toes.
Absolutely.
Do you have any final message for somebody listening in to keep in mind?
Yeah, I think the message is pay attention. And for those people listening to this podcast, to this message, who are perhaps wondering if they're intuitive, or could they be intuitive? Yes, absolutely. You came that way. It's part of the standard programming that we have. Kind of like a car, like a new car. It comes with standard features. Humans come with intuition built in, and we just have forgotten that. And so start to pay attention, notice what keeps showing up around you, what things keep repeating around you, because that's happening for a reason. And find a way to become to learn this. Find there's so many places out there, so many people out there, so many ways that we can start to hone our sensitivity to our own intuition, and start that journey of listening, understanding how you receive information, and then trusting yourself and your higher self to take that information and actually utilize it. And just, you'll be surprised. You'll be surprised what happens in your life as a result.
So where would we find you online?
Yes. So I have a brand new website. It's actually not even, this is the first time I'm formally putting it out there. Just got finished about a week ago, and it's richawakenings.com, richawakenings.com. On my website, you can see everything that I do with my clients. And also, I'm offering anyone who's interested in learning more about intuition, or mindset, mindfulness, or heartfulness, I offer a 30-minute complimentary consultation. And you can find that on the website under the services tab, and book a 30-minute conversation, and we can explore this or any other topic in greater detail. So I invite you to take advantage of that, and would love to hear from some of your folks. I suppose, given what you do, that you have people out there who are definitely interested in learning how to hone their mindset for mindfulness.
Yeah, mindset, intuition, all that stuff. It's great stuff.
Yeah.
Cool. Thanks for sharing today, Rich. It was great to hear about intuition, how to actually go about following that in some practical ways, and how to listen to your voice even when you feel like you shouldn't. It's it's good stuff. Thanks again.
Thank you. I appreciate the opportunity.
Cool. So until next time, have fun and enjoy the process.